I'm glad I had that experience. Back in a moment. Financial stress is hitting an all-time high. Millions of Americans are stretched thin with no extra money, no room to breathe. And this isn't just lower income households. Middle-class families are also running out of options. If debt has been weighing on you, you are not alone. And waiting usually makes things worse. Interest grows, minimum payments trap you, nothing changes. You don't need another loan or to consider bankruptcy. You need a strategy. That's why I like Done with Debt. They build a smart, personalized plan around you and understand what it takes to work toward the biggest reductions possible. Whether you owe $10,000 or much more, their goal is simple: lower what you owe so you keep more of your paycheck. Start with a free consultation at donewithdebt.com. donewithdebt.com. Thank you for listening to the O'Reilly Update. I am Bill O'Reilly. No spin, just facts, and always looking out for you.
This is News Talk STL. KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefonte, KNBS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, and always streaming at newstalkstl.com.
News this hour from Town Hall. I'm Keith Peters in Washington. President Trump has warned that a whole civilization will die tonight, but says Iran still has time to capitulate ahead of a deadline he set for 8 p.m. Tuesday in Washington. President Trump says the military has a plan for what to strike in Iran if the Strait of Hormuz is not open by 8 p.m. Tuesday.
Every bridge in Iran will be decimated by 12 o'clock tomorrow night, where every power plant in Iran will be out of business, burning, exploding, and never to be used again. I mean, complete demolition by 12 o'clock.
The U.S. has already struck military targets on the Iranian oil hub of Karg Island, according to a White House official on Tuesday, while Israeli warplanes struck bridges and railways in Iran. The Artemis II astronauts have pointed their moon ship towards home. Correspondent Ben Thomas has more on that story.
Don't forget to enjoy the view.
Apollo 13 Commander Jim Lovell, in a wake-up message for the Artemis II astronauts recorded 2 months before his death last August.
Houston, copy.
Later,
we'll see you on the other side.
this exchange between NASA Mission Control and the Orion capsule.
We will see you on the other side.
At that point, they were headed for the far side of the moon, temporarily out of contact as they shattered the distance record set by Lovell's Apollo 13 in 1970, more than 250,000 miles from Earth, and using the same maneuver to put the astronauts on course back home to Earth. I'm Ben Thomas.
On Wall Street, a mixed day as the Dow is down by 85 points. The Nasdaq rose 21, with the S&P 500 advancing by 5, oil hovering around $112 a barrel. More at Town Hall.
The following is a real-life story from Trinity Debt Management.
I had a lot of credit card debt, and it stressed me out. But what I thought was a solution turned out to be a problem. I kept hearing ads about debt settlement that seemed too good to be true. And actually, it was. When I called, they told me to stop paying my bills. That didn't sound right to me at all, so I hung up. Later, I found out that debt settlement is bad, real bad. Then I learned that there is a right way to pay off your credit cards. It's called a debt management program from the great team at Trinity. Trinity had a plan. In the end, I paid off my bills, I saved thousands, and I even improved my credit score.
If credit card debt has you down, call Trinity at 1-800-990-6976.
My name is Heather. Please forget debt settlement and remember Trinity Debt Management.
1-800-990-6976.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm First Alert 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. Big warm-up is on the way. Now, we're near normal cool in the morning, a low of 43 degrees with some mostly cloudy skies, but turning partly sunny, a little breezy, and a high of 75. What a nice Wednesday, but it is warmer for Thursday, a low of 56 in the morning, and then a high near 80, around 79 with partly cloudy skies Thursday. That's the latest from the First Alert 4 Weather Center. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
This hour of News Talk STL is brought to you by Rodney and Jen Wallner and the entire Wallner home selling team at Berkshire Hathaway. Call them today at 314-810-SOLD. 314-810-SOLD.
I'm Dr. TJ, owner of the Institute of Natural Health, co-owner of Optimal Nutraceuticals, and the host of Wellness One. Wellness One is designed to cut through the nonsense and provide you common sense science-based information regarding health and wellness. On the show, we discuss topics like thyroid health, gut health, hormone optimization, and many others. Our show airs Saturdays at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. and Sundays at 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. right here on Newstalk STL. And you can visit us at inhstl.com. That's inhstl.com.
This year, America turns 250, and Newstalk STL is celebrating our nation's semi-quincentennial all year long. Newstalk STL, #1 for live and local Soros-free talk, with proud supporters of our 250th birthday celebration. Roman T. Jewelers, Luxury Driver STL, Harry J. Steakhouse, and Snooze Mattress. 250 years strong, and we're just getting started. 101.9 and 94.1 Newstalk STL.
If you have a phone, you have a radio.
Download the all-new Newstalk STL app.
Love the all-new Newstalk STL app.
On my way to work in the morning.
Usually I'm in the car.
I listen on the app in my car every morning going to work.
Download the Newstalk STL app and listen anytime, anywhere.
1949, the last time a Republican held the top post in St. Louis City. A gallon of milk was 84 cents and streetcars ran down Grand Avenue. Unfortunately, St. Louis City streets are no longer the epicenter of family and business life. In the 80 years of Democrat control, our city has been on a steady decline.
Hello, Kirk Ilsinger, chairman of the Republican Party for the city of St. Louis, and we believe it is our duty to provide a different path forward. I invite you to our meetings the first Thursday of every month. Learn more at stl-gop.com.
Paid for by St. Louis City Republican PAC. Curtis Farber, Treasurer.
Hey, it's Susie Moore. If new flooring makes you think hassle, think again, because Michael's Flooring is changing the game. For over 30 years, Michael's has been locally owned and trusted for quality, variety, and amazing service. Whether it's carpet, hardwood, laminate, luxury vinyl, or ceramic tile, their expert team makes installing new floors exciting, not stressful. That's why customers keep coming back. Visit Michael's Flooring at St. Peter's, Starting Prairie, Creve Coeur, or online at igotfloored.com. That's igotfloored.com.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
The more you remove voting from Election Day, the more opportunity you're offering for people to commit fraud.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
I think the Democrats are so short-sighted in this tactic they have now to just cheat at any cost to win elections.
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier. You said you were, but now you got to be honest. I'm going to be honest with you.
What are we doing wrong here?
As a former leader in the House, I think you can put your finger on it. It's called leadership. We don't have it.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
They want us to keep bombing.
As the clock ticks down to 8 p.m. Eastern Time, President Trump's threats are getting more specific.
Every bridge in Iran will be decimated by 12 o'clock. Every power plant in Iran will be out of business, burning, exploding, and never to be used again.
Trump was asked repeatedly Monday whether such attacks on civilian infrastructure would constitute a war crime. He insisted the Iranian people get it.
They would be willing to suffer that in order to have freedom.
408, and welcome to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show, the April 7th, Tuesday edition. Today is Election Day throughout the St. Louis area, and I hope that you have voted. And if you have not voted, you have until 7 o'clock tonight to exercise your right to vote. Big news today. You heard the president there giving the deadline to Iran. It's less than 4 hours, 8 o'clock Eastern time, I think, or maybe it's Central time, I'm not sure, that the Iranians have to meet that deadline or their quote-unquote civilization will be ended. A lot to talk about, but of course, my partner Tim Jones is at the Jefferson City Bureau of News Talk STL in the Capitol. Mr. Jones, how are you?
Doing great, Chris. I have my I voted sticker here. I'm holding up for the camera so everybody can see on the streams. Although I felt kind of silly voting today. I mean, I exercised my constitutional right, the thing that, servicemen and women are putting their lives on the line for around the world. But, Chris, these April elections are ridiculous. There were 2 things on my ballot in Eureka, Missouri this morning: an unopposed aldermanic race and a race for community college trustee, whatever that does. So I hope that the bill that's pending in the Missouri legislature to eliminate these April elections and move everything to November, I hope it passes this year, because these elections, Chris, are a true waste of taxpayer resources. They're important, but the turnout and the items on the ballot almost make a mockery of the system.
Yeah, I have not voted yet. I was going to go after the show tonight. I'll have plenty of time, about a half hour, because my polling place is right across the street from my house, so I don't have that far to go.
Aha.
But I think it's the same in my situation, Tim. We vote for the mayor of University City, and we also are voting on a junior college district trustee. So two things on the ballot to vote for. But voting, of course, is very, very important. So go exercise your vote. I think we talked about it earlier or late last week that the Missouri House of Representatives have voted out a bill to change the elections in St. Charles. I think the school board elections or the April elections to November. What's the status of that? Is that in the Senate now?
Passed the Senate.
Oh, okay.
Senator Adam Schnelting was able to put that on a bill last week and send it to the House. Unfortunately, it's only for the county of St. Charles. It needs to be expanded statewide because, once again, what is the purpose of these April elections? They're important, which is why we need more turnout, but they seem to be almost special elections whereby all the taxing jurisdictions put their giant wish list of tax and spend items on the ballot, hope that no one except their little tax and spend base goes and votes for them, and that's how they get that through. So Senator Adam Schnelting is trying to rectify that. It's something that's been talked about for, I swear, the last 15 to 20 years. But, Chris, the tax and spend lobby is pretty powerful here in Jefferson City, and they always tend to kill that bill.
And it is Election Day in St. Louis County, which means that it's Election Day in other parts of the country as well. The nation's eyes will be on the election in Georgia. Marjorie Taylor Greene, her seat is up in a special election today. That is a very red district, and the Republican is expected to win handily. He was endorsed by President Trump. But, of course, the Democrats will be looking at that race to see just how well the Democrat does. The Republican should win. They have been touting over and over that they've won 13 special elections this year, and I'm sure if they feel that this Democrat gets 40 or 45% of the vote, that will be a win for them.
Yeah, I'm sure that's what they'll say. These special elections are very difficult. They are base elections, and when the party not in power, when the party not in power is able to nationalize these elections, whoever that party is, this time it's the Democrats. They tend to have an easier go of it in specials. We had the CNN poll yesterday that showed that Republicans are outpacing Democrats on favorability ratings, but that doesn't mean that either party can skate into neither party can take historical reference for granted this year, right? Because all of the norms have been upended the last few years. So both parties are going to have to get not only their bases out, but they're going to have to motivate independents as well, who usually aren't motivated except for presidential years. And so both parties are going to have to do that. Razor thin majority in the House, a little bit more of a majority in the Senate, but the House is going to be the entity that the Democrats are definitely going to be gunning for with that 2-seat margin.
And because today is Election Day, we'll speak with David Stokes at 423. He's Director of Municipal Policy at the Show Me Institute. David will go over all of the big issues that are happening around St. Louis County, Jefferson County, St. Charles County. A lot of things are on the ballot. David will give us the rundown on that. But, Tim, we have a special guest on the line. We have Catherine Hanaway. She is the Missouri Attorney General. Catherine, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. I'm sorry I'm running a little late. We're in one of the many traffic jams on Interstate 70.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. First, I want to start off with last week, the Harmeet Dillon, who is the civil rights head of the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department, that she has intervened in a lawsuit that you have filed against the Missouri State High School Activities Association. Tell us about that lawsuit.
Well, the basis of that lawsuit is simply that it's illegal to discriminate against anyone on the basis of race or gender, and the Missouri State Activities Association or Athletic Association has a rule that says the two at-large members of their board must either be women or minorities. And so we've been working on this case for some time. We found all this out because the Cassville superintendent applied for one of those at-large board seats and was turned down because he was a white male. And he took the issue to the state auditor. And our auditor, who is terrific, Scott Fitzpatrick, actually inquired with the Athletic Association and found out that, yes, in fact, that's what the position they were taking. And so we filed a lawsuit because it's simply illegal to do that.
Catherine, thanks for being back with us today. Madam Speaker, Madam Attorney General, this is Misha we're talking about, right?
It's Misha. That's right.
Yeah.
The most dreaded organization in all of Missouri.
Yeah, Catherine, could you expand upon that a little bit? And I don't want you to disclose anything you're not supposed to under your Attorney General hat, but you and I battled Misha when we were in the Missouri House, and they're supposed to be, just like any other governmental or quasi-governmental agency, they're supposed to be subject to legislative oversight and review. They're supposed to be responsible to the taxpayers. But I'm curious to know your opinion on them. They always seem to act like they're above and beyond the oversight or the reach of anybody in the state of Missouri.
Yeah, it's quite amazing to me. I mean, this is just supposed to be an association of all the schools in Missouri that puts on activities and, importantly, athletic events like running the state high school basketball tournament. Like, it's not too much more complicated than that, but there's all kinds of instances where we see them just ignoring what either the law says or what the people want. One of the big battles that I know you and I fought was when there were really excellent high school athletes in Missouri in swimming or in track and field. And because they were so excellent, they were competing all over the country. Misha wouldn't let them run in the state track meet or swim in the state swim meet because they said they competed too much. Like, to have an organization that literally is saying, you're too good, we're not going to let you participate, it just kind of runs against every fiber of my being that believes in merit. And that's really what this lawsuit's about. We should have the best board members that we possibly can for the organization instead of discriminating on the basis of race and gender. And I'm so happy that the Department of Justice decided to get involved in this lawsuit. I think it'll bring some extra weight and maybe make some real changes. And I know I'm kind of yammering on. Last good point I'll make, though, is that the legislature has in front of it a bill where the governor would appoint these board members instead of the board sort of self-perpetuating. I think it would be really a step forward to have oversight, because then at least voters can hold the governor accountable.
Speaking with Missouri Attorney General Catherine Hanaway. Madam Attorney General, your office announced last week a resolution with the Wentzville School District over alleged sunshine law violations. Tell us what that's all about.
Well, the concern was that there was a real debate going on over what kind of bathrooms they should have and whether they should have bathrooms that were dedicated to transgender individuals. And so the board actually tried to have that discussion in a closed session. We, rather than having to go to a full-blown lawsuit, were able to give the transparency that was necessary, but come to a resolution with the school board that, we think captures the intention of the Sunshine Law and serves the voters in that district well.
Madam Attorney General, the one of the biggest, hottest topics up in Washington, D.C. recently has been the Save America Act for election integrity. President Trump signed an executive order last week regarding mail-in balloting and how and when that should be counted. And I believe you have joined a coalition of 25 states on behalf of the state of Missouri regarding a state's ability to defend state sovereignty and election integrity. What is that particular effort about?
Yeah, so Pennsylvania is sort of the lead on this, but we have joined the amicus brief to try to make sure that states and election laws, as they are, enacted by that particular state, are upheld. I'm very pleased that we won a case in front of the Missouri Supreme Court on voter identification. As you know, Mr. Speaker, going all the way back to when we were in the legislature, we've been passing bills to require voter ID in Missouri, and the Supreme Court keeps overturning them. I don't think this fight is entirely over, but we have won the most recent case. And so, voter ID will be required in Missouri, which is a good thing.
On March 18th, you announced 2 felony counts of first-degree promoting gambling, plus a civil action against a Greene County business over 12 illegal slot machines. Those slot machines have been a big issue in the state of Missouri for years now. Tell us more about this.
Well, so I'm so pleased. I can't say thank you enough to the St. Charles County prosecutor, who's now stepped up and said he'll go after these machines. The St. Louis County prosecutor, who put out a statement with me saying that going forward, we're going to start prosecuting anybody who has these machines if they don't get rid of them by June 1st. I think you're going to see some other significant statewide news this week. But the effort is because these are illegal slot machines and they've proliferated all over the state. And it's deeply concerning to me that this is a multi-million-dollar, if not billion-dollar industry that's almost all cash, that is illegal and has just thumbed its nose at law enforcement until now, where we've gone forward with great cooperation among local elected prosecutors and the Attorney General's office and the 2 U.S. attorneys' offices in Missouri. And part of what troubles me about it is, this, for the most part, these are in, gas stations around the state, and the people you see playing them are among the least advantaged people, the poorest of the poor, and we're just, letting this illegal enterprise take their money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Catherine, the legislature seems to be hamstrung on this issue. They've had plenty of hearings and plenty of legislative proposals bouncing back and forth between the chambers over the last few years, but they haven't seemed to be able to get a bill close to the finish line. Have they asked for your guidance or assistance or thoughts on any kind of legislation that they might consider where they can actually get something done? Because what I worry about is maybe another constitutional proposal where we cram yet another thing into the Constitution that doesn't belong there because the legislature can't come up with a solution to something that's been percolating for, 7 or 8 years now.
Yeah, I'm a little bit worried about that too. I mean, what I've told the legislature is that it's my job to enforce the law. They make the law. So right now, they have made no law on these gaming machines. So the only place it's legal to have slot machines is on riverboat casinos, which aren't really riverboats anymore in Missouri. But it's not legal anywhere else. So until they pass a law saying that it is, I'm going to enforce the existing law.
And finally, Missouri, or Madam Attorney General, your office sent 33 cease and desist letters to unlicensed retailers that are selling these intoxicating cannabis or marijuana products. Tell us about that action.
Well, as we know, cannabis is legal in Missouri, but only at licensed dispensaries. And we have found, and it's not just this 33, there are many more to come, places that are selling cannabis that don't have a license to do so. And so if what we've said is, hey, here's your last chance, do the right thing, shut down legally, and shut down voluntarily. And if you don't, we're coming after you. And I'm particularly concerned about the products that are really aimed at kids that look like Skittles, Chips Ahoy cookies, Doritos, that contain THC. And so these places are selling, pot just as pot, but they're also selling these other products that really you can't make any argument but that they are targeted at kids.
And that is Catherine Hanaway, Missouri Attorney General. She's at agomo.mo.gov and on X, AGC Hanaway. Madam Attorney General, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you both for having me on. Really appreciate it. Have a great rest of the week.
Thank you. 425 coming up. We're going to speak with David Stokes, Director of Municipal Policy at the Show Me Institute. We're going to talk to him about all of the elections and more. You're listening to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show on 1019 94.1 News Talk STL.
The biggest gun we've got is called the ballot box. So if you don't like who's in there, vote them out.
Follow us on Rumble at News Talk STL.
Vote them out, vote them out. And when they're gone, we'll sing and dance and shout.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm First Alert 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. A big warm-up is on the way. Now, we're near normal cool in the morning, a low of 43 degrees with some mostly cloudy skies, but turning partly sunny, a little breezy, and a high of 75. What a nice Wednesday, but it is warmer for Thursday, a low of 56 in the morning, and then a high near 80, around 79 with partly cloudy skies Thursday. That's the latest from the First Alert 4 Weather Center. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
You talk about race relations.
This conversation has completely made me crazy.
This is complete insanity. And I'm sick and tired of it.
1019 and 94.1.
I find it to be a conversation starter.
News Talk STL.
Who doesn't want clean air and clean water? Yes, even us crazy conservatives. Yeah, can the liberals believe it? Hey, that's why I'm so excited that Jones Air and Water is back on the air with us. They have been a supporter of the station and of this program almost since our earliest days, nearly 5 years ago. Yeah, Everett Jones and the gang back here with us. Look, I'm going to tell you about 3 different products that Jones Air and Water has installed in our Jones home. Jones Air and Water, my brothers and sisters from another mother. First of all, we have the reverse osmosis drinking system. It's absolutely fantastic. That's that little, stainless steel spigot, you see. They can put it, we have one at the station. We have one at our Jones home. They can put it in your kitchen sink. They can put it in a bathroom. They can put it downstairs in your lower level living area, wherever you want it. And that delivers the foundation you need of clean, reverse osmosis driven and provided water. You got to drink lots of water. They say a minimum of 8 glasses a day. Yeah, who's drinking that? I try, and we all should try more. The dehumidification system. That is your whole home dehumidifier. And I know it's just now April, but can't you feel that humidity kind of starting to creep back in the air a little bit, right? The days, the nights aren't as dry as they used to be. So I would check out that dehumidification system as well. It helps your air conditioner work a lot less harder, right? And your air, I mean, we love it in our Jones home. It's absolutely fantastic. And finally, the Hydrotech H2O system. Even if you're on county water, like if you're on a county water system, you don't have as good a water as you need to have. The Hydrotech H2O it continues to improve the hardness of the water, definitely improves the taste, removes the odors, low upfront costs, lower annual costs. We have that system as well. We have all three systems. Jones Air and Water will be happy to come out and put those into your home as well. And they've got a lot of other great air and water treatment products and services too. They got some big announcements coming down the line too. So I'm so excited we got them back on at this particular time. I want you to check them out. They're always available to you 24/7 at joneswater.com. That's joneswater.com.
Hey, when pests invade your home, you need someone you can trust. It's Jamie Allman here, and at Buckingham Pest Control, they're not just your exterminators, they're your neighbors and friends. A locally owned family business and St. Louis Magazine A-List award winner, providing affordable, quality pest control. Plus, they offer energy-efficient TAP attic insulation, the only insulation that controls pests. BuckinghamPestControl.com. That's BuckinghamPestControl.com.
This hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stifel. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com.
Vote for me, vote for me. I want the nomination for the presidency.
It's the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show.
If I am elected, this is how it will be. I cut your tax in half. I make the Russians laugh. I feed the hungry people everywhere.
There are nearly 24 areas just in the county voting on tax measures for emergency services. There are also similar votes for some fire districts in St. Charles and Jefferson counties. All of this comes after changes to Missouri state law last year, which allows more counties to pass fire and EMS sales taxes and even increase that sales tax rate up to 1%. The law lets voters decide to raise the tax on things you buy and in turn lower some of your property taxes.
David Stokes over at the Show Me Institute.
In high school, you talk about spike. I had a very short spike. It was spiked.
I knew there's some spike somewhere in that stuff.
It wasn't very punky. It was more Leave It to Beaver-ish, maybe.
And as he does every Tuesday, David Stokes, Director of Municipal Policy for the Show Me Institute. David, how are you? And happy Election Day. And have you voted already?
I did vote. You know, we don't have a very crowded ballot in University City, unlike much of the rest of the region. So voting in and out just took a minute. But yes, I have voted today.
What is in University City?
I put my money where my mouth is, Chris.
I hear you. University City is the mayor and junior college board, right? Or college board? Is that it?
You know, I was losing sleep over the junior college board decision last night. But finally, after hours of mental wrangling, I made a decision today.
Well, that's always a good thing to hear, David. Well, Election Day is happening all across the St. Louis metro area. One of the taxes that we've talked about many times here on the show is the 1% earnings tax in St. Louis. How do you think that's going to fare, David? Are we going to eliminate it?
I do not think we are going to eliminate it, unfortunately. I see no reason that it won't largely repeat the cycles from 5 years ago and 10 years ago and be passed substantially. Maybe the margin will decrease. I don't know. Fewer and fewer people are voting on it in the city of St. Louis as the population continues to shrink, in part because of the earnings tax. But we'll see if the cycle of I want to tax other people for my stuff continues.
David, where are you on maintaining these April elections? I went to my I went to my precinct today, and there's all these workers there with all this equipment and all this stuff they had to set up. I was the only person there voting at that particular time. There was an unopposed aldermanic race, and then a race that I didn't even know was on the ballot. It was to select a trustee for the community colleges. And I felt like the whole thing was a gigantic waste, not of time, because I believe in voting whenever there is an election held, but a huge waste of taxpayer dollars. David, shouldn't these April elections, which are just used by the tax and spenders on the local level, be moved to August or November?
this is where I break with many of my fellow philosophers of various types, and I would say no to that. My main objection, and I get your point, and your point is perfectly accurate. But this is just, an off year with not much on the ballot in your area. Would it be that way every year? But next year there'll probably be more of a mayor's race or other more school board races. So where I definitely agree that we have too many elections, and we do have too many elections, is you get these really obscure February elections, November and an odd-numbered year election. We had a bunch of votes last November in 2025. June elections. We do have too many elections, but our November and August ballots can be long enough as they are. November ballots in particular are crazy crowded, and I can't imagine trying to run for mayor of your small suburb while at the same time everybody's focused on who's running for president or governor in a November election. Like nobody will care what you're saying when you're running for mayor or city council. Not that most people care now. I mean, I'm aware of the 20% turnout we're going to get in most of the region. But we have too many elections, but I would say let's focus on getting rid of the February and June and obscure odd year November elections that really nobody is familiar with, and put all of that stuff on the April ballot, if not the August and November too at times, and see how we can improve turnout in April.
Speaking with David Stokes, Director of Municipal Policy at the Show Me Institute. David, voters in St. Charles, Franklin, and Jefferson counties are seeing ballot language on limiting property tax increases. Are any one of those ballot measures catch your fancy?
I don't support any of them. And this will no doubt surprise some of your listeners, although your regular listeners know my position on this.
The host is surprised too, David.
We had an op-ed. I had an op-ed in the Business Journal opposed to these. These are very strict limitations on property tax increases in St. Charles, Jefferson, and Franklin County. There are no property tax increases based on reassessment at all. Now, it can only be done by a vote of the people. And I believe in the power of markets in many ways, and that includes setting your property tax rate. And if your house goes up in value a little bit, that's the market at work. And then if your property taxes go up a little bit too, that's okay with me. And don't get me wrong, we have lots of reforms to property taxes in Missouri that we need to make. And I talk about these things before the state legislature all the time. But while we are at the state level, while we are trying to eliminate the state income tax, which would be a wonderful move for the state of Missouri, to at the same time be dramatically limiting the ability to rely on property taxes at the local level in 97 Missouri counties, not St. Louis City or St. Louis County, but all the rest in the region and most of the rest statewide. I think that's a very bad move. It is frustrating to me that in St. Louis County we have school districts that are locally funded at 80%, 90%, sometimes higher than 90% of local funding. And in much of rural Missouri, you have school districts that are funded at 50% or less of local funding. And now those counties are now going to restrict how they raise property taxes. That strikes me as a solution, not a solution, but an end result of relying more on taxes paid out of St. Louis County and Jackson County, Kansas City, to fund those local schools instead of them funding themselves. All at the time we're trying to phase out our income tax, which is what we really need. So I don't think this all works, and I'm not a supporter of these property tax limits in Missouri counties.
Now, David, and I agree with you. I think this is not good property tax reform because it's not uniform. It's going to create an unequal playing field. I know there's litigation pending because of what I just said. David, what about these efforts that the fire districts are also pursuing? Is that a different effort that some people are seeing on their ballots as well? And I believe you have some issues with that proposal. That's a bit of a bait and switch, isn't it?
Absolutely. A bait and switch is a good term for it. So we have throughout the region, and this is what the news lead-in that Joey played was talking about. It was a great lead-in. That Joey, he does a good job.
He does do a great job.
Yes, he does.
Anyway, so due to some changes in the legislature last year, you have throughout the whole region, almost every fire district and ambulance district in the St. Louis region has a sales tax increase on the ballot today. Now, if you live where Chris and I, in a city with a fire department, you're not seeing this. But Tim, you've got the fire district tax increase, I would imagine, out where you are. And in places like St. Charles County, where they have separate fire districts and ambulance districts, you can get hammered if the voters approve these. The sales tax in St. Charles could go from an average of 8% to 10% overnight if voters approve both these ballot propositions today. And that's a 25% increase in a day. And you have a similar problem down in Jefferson County. The ambulance districts really throw me because I want to remind people that when you ride in an ambulance, you get a bill for that. These are not districts entirely supported by taxes. They send you a bill for it. And the idea that they need not only property taxes, the Post-Dispatch had a good story about how much money they all have. Like, they don't need the money. They just want it. So I think these sales tax increases, which are being sold, you see all the signs around the whole region, they don't even talk like it's a sales tax increase. They all lead with property tax cut on the big sign. Because, yes, some of the money raised will have to be returned to property owners in the terms of a property tax reduction. But trust me, it's still a total tax burden increase. They just have to take some of the new sales tax money and kick it back. But it's a tax increase, and in St. Charles or Jefferson, if they all pass, it's going to be an enormous sales tax increase. So I think this is a terrible – these new sales taxes are a terrible idea, and I hope the voters see through it all.
David, I know you do policy there at the Show Me Institute. You don't do politics, but I'm going to mix the two here. St. Louis County Assessor Jake Zimmerman is running, of course, against Senator Brian Williams for the county executive. And the Post-Dispatch has a story today that these two candidates are clashing over property tax assessment appeals. What gives here, David?
Well, you're right. We don't do politics. The last thing I want to be is involved in a Democrat primary or a Republican primary. But what gives is that, this is a political maneuver, I think. I mean, Jake's running for assessor, or he is the assessor running for county executive. So what are you going to criticize him on? Well, obviously you're going to criticize him on assessments, and it has to do with a fact that there's a long-running court case, still from 2025, about all these sort of mass lawsuits over assessment increases. And we have a lot more. We always had a lot of appeals in St. Louis County, which is a good thing because the appeal process is wonderful. But now we have a lot of lawsuits because you have these law firms like Property Assessment Review or PAR that sort of do these mass torts of property assessment appeals now. And I'm not saying they shouldn't be allowed to do it. They should. But, I don't have a lot of sympathy if the assessor should just sort of fall down and do whatever PAR tells them to do in a lawsuit. Like, I have no idea which assessment appeal is correct and which is incorrect. So I don't have a problem with Jake Zimmerman, seeing this through the court process as the assessor, as opposed to just lying down and letting the mass torts win. Like, trust me, I like property taxes. I like a market-based system, but I want property taxes to be low for everybody. I want the tax base wide so that the rates can be low. I don't want these people suing to just pay higher taxes for the heck of it. But if you give all of them their tax cut at the same way because you just lie over, that's going to result in higher taxes on the people who don't appeal and who don't file a lawsuit. So I'm not just automatically assuming that the political attacks here are correct.
And before we let you go, David, any upcoming events for the Show Me Institute?
Yeah, we have an event Thursday in St. Charles. It's at 5:00. It's at the I'm going over to that click here because I want to get the address correct. It's at OPO Startups, right in the heart of beautiful Main Street, downtown St. Charles, 1119 South Main. and we're going to have some talks about today's elections, and I'll also talk about data centers, which nothing gets people's hide going more than data center discussions right now. So it should be a lot of fun. My colleague Avery Frank will be talking about the data centers as well. So I hope people can check it out. All the information is at showmeinstitute.org.
And that's David Stokes, Director of Municipal Policy at the Show Me Institute, showmeinstitute.org, and on X, David C. Stokes. David, thank you so much for your time, and we'll talk to you next Tuesday.
Absolutely. Wish you guys all the best. Great talking with you, Chris and Tim and Joey, and see you soon.
Thank you, sir. 443, Chris's Corner. Cori Bush, her endorsements, and what they really mean. I'll tell you more next on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show on 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL.
Vote for me, vote for me. I want the nomination for the presidency. Vote for
Follow us on Rumble at News Talk STL.
If I am elected, this is how it will be. I cut your tax in half. I make the Russians laugh. I feed the hungry people everywhere.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm First Alert 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. A big warm-up is on the way. Now, we're near normal cool in the morning, a low of 43 degrees with some mostly cloudy skies, but turning partly sunny, a little breezy, and a high of 75. What a nice Wednesday, but it is warmer for Thursday, a low of 56 in the morning, and then a high near 80, around 79 with partly cloudy skies Thursday. That's the latest from the First Alert 4 Weather Center. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
News, analysis, opinion.
You know, they're literally taking the Constitution and putting it in a paper shredder.
News Talk STL.
Let me tell you something about I genuinely use, and that is Royal Banks of Missouri's interactive teller machines, or as they like to call them, their ITMs. You know, you can think of them as a branch without the lobby. You pull up, and instead of just pushing buttons on an ATM, you're actually talking live with a real Royal Banks teller on video and audio. It's the same service you get inside just without getting out of your car. That's why I use them. They're quick, they're easy, and they're still personal. I can deposit or withdraw cash, make loan payments, cash checks, move money, and if I have a question, I'm talking to an actual human being, not a screen prompt. Here's the real advantage, though, the hours. Weekdays, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m., Saturdays, 9 to 2. And if you don't live your life between 9 and 5, that really matters. I've been a loyal customer of Royal Banks of Missouri for more than 20 years because they've always understood that convenience isn't a luxury. It's part of good service. 16 locations across St. Louis, St. Charles, Illinois, and Northeast Missouri. They're locally owned, independently run, and invested right here in our community. You can learn more at royalbanksofmo.com, royalbanksofmo.com, Royal Banks of Missouri, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Hey, Jamie Allman here for my favorite go-to store for seafood, gourmet goodness, and tons of wine. It's Stars, 1135 South Big Bend. A huge selection of seafood flown in from the coast. Lemon sole, halibut, Maryland lump crab, Gulf shrimp, and you gotta try the trout dip. Plus, imported and domestic hand-cut cheeses, lots of hand-picked wines at great prices, hard-to-find gourmet foods, and fresh roasted coffee using only the best quality beans. Stars, 1135 South Big Bend, just off of Highway 40.
Tuesday, April 7th, your community is on the ballot. And before you vote, you need to know what you're voting on.
School board, city council.
News Talk STL has you covered. Log on to newstalkstl.com for our complete voter's guide. See the issues and races on your local ballot. Know the facts. Make your choice.
I think we need some kind of change.
Then get out and vote. Because local elections aren't decided by millions. They're decided by you.
My vote counts.
See the complete voter's guide at newstalkstl.com.
Hey, Jamie Allman here for Window World. Did you know that Window World offers a lifetime warranty that covers all parts, glass breakage, and labor? They are one of the only 2 replacement windows with the Good Housekeeping seal of approval. Window World St. Louis has been owned and operated by a group of born and raised St. Louis residents for more than 23 years. And now Window World is offering 36 months, same as cash financing with approved credit. Call them today, 800-GET-WINDOWS for a free in-home, no-pressure estimate. That's Window World at 800-GET-WINDOWS.
On the next,
Larry Connors, USA.
The story behind the story. Paula Sims, convicted of killing 2 of her children because they were girls.
Larry Connors, USA. Now, weeknights 6 until 8 on News Talk STL. Chris's Corner, brought to you by Timothy's Restaurant at 12710 Olive in Creve Coeur.
If I became president, I know it won't last a day. I would love all the taxes just to suit your taste.
You're listening to Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
Station them around your door so the world can't do you no harm.
Good news for local manufacturing research. Congressman Wesley Bell presented a $1 million check to the University of Missouri St. Louis this morning for its pharmaceutical research program. School officials say the funding will help strengthen research for domestic production of finished drug products.
Chris.
And if you don't know, now you know.
And now, Chris's Corner.
You hear Wesley Bell there doing what politicians do during election years, bringing home the bacon. He's got a tough opponent, Cori Bush, trying to recapture her seat. Also today, I learned that Wesley Bell was endorsed by Planned Parenthood. Cori Bush didn't get that endorsement, so he is doing all the right things to try to retain his seat. You know, endorsements really mean a lot, and I'm going to tell you about Cori Bush, her endorsements, and what they really mean. You know, you can learn a lot about a politician by the company they keep, not just who they campaign with, but who funds them, who endorses them, and who is trying to put them back into power. Former Missouri Congresswoman Cori Bush has just been endorsed by the Peace, Accountability, and Leadership PAC. That's a group aligned with the Institute for Middle East Understanding, a pro-Palestinian advocacy organization that works to influence U.S. media coverage and U.S. policy towards Israel. Now, this endorsement didn't happen in a vacuum. It makes sense when you look at Cori Bush's record and her past statements about Israel. Cori Bush has accused Israel of committing ethnic cleansing. She has referred to Israel's actions in Gaza as collective punishment. She has pushed to cut off U.S. military aid to Israel. She has also called for sanctions against Israel, and she has repeatedly accused Israel of human rights violations and war crimes. So when a PAC aligned with activists who want to cut U.S. aid to Israel, sanction Israel, and change U.S. foreign policy in the Middle East endorses Cori Bush, that's not surprising. That's alignment. That's ideology. That's political coalition. And here's where it gets more interesting. Some of the figures connected to the network behind this PAC are controversial figures in the Middle East debate. One of the prominent voices associated with this network is Diana Boutou, a former spokesperson for the Palestinian leadership who has publicly called Israel an apartheid state and has defended Hamas in media interviews by saying their actions are a response to occupation. Another policy figure connected to this network has advocated for cutting U.S. military aid to Israel and has been involved in the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement against Israel. So again, this endorsement tells you something. It tells you who believes Cori Bush represents their views and their political goals. Now zoom out for a second. Because this is bigger than one endorsement and bigger than one politician. For decades in America, support for Israel was bipartisan. Republicans and Democrats both supported Israel as an ally and as a democracy in a very dangerous part of the world. But in recent years, especially on the far left, that has started to change. You now have a growing political movement that is openly hostile to Israel, openly supportive of the Palestinian cause, and pushing to cut U.S. aid and fundamentally change America's role in the Middle East. Cori Bush is part of that political shift. This endorsement just makes it official. And Missouri voters should pay attention to this because this is not just about foreign policy. This is about worldview. This is about alliances. This is about where America stands in the world and who our elected officials believe our allies are. Because in politics, endorsements are not just support, they are signals. They tell you who is investing in a candidate and what they expect that candidate to do when they get into office. If you want to know where a politician stands, don't just listen to what they say. Look at who is backing them. Because endorsements are signals, and this one is a very loud signal, and that is Chris's Corner. Are you surprised by this endorsement, Tim, at all?
No. Chris, and you really keyed in on something right there. And again, I do not want to broad brush this at all, but it really feels like it feels like we're in, I don't know, the next wave of a global holy war, right? And this has been going on for not just hundreds, but thousands of years. They're literally named something the Crusades after this. And Many would argue that at its core, there is a militant sect of Islam that is not at all a peaceful religion and will not rest until Chris, you, I, and every Israeli and Jewish person on the planet, so Jews and Christians alike, are gone from the face of this planet. Right? They believe that we are the infidel. The infidel means anybody who's not a strict practitioner of, and you can call it the abomination version of Islam or whatever, but there have been plenty of treatises written by much smarter people than me about why at its core Islam is not a peaceful religion.
And Islam in the Quran says that if you do not convert to Islam, you die. They behead you. I mean, it is in black and white there in the Quran. There are some, I'm sure, that practice Islam don't adhere to that. But the radical jihadists in the Middle East and now some of the radical jihadists here in America firmly believe in that. And I think that's part of the reason why it's so important that Iran not achieve a nuclear weapon, because they would use that weapon to kill the infidels, and that is us. They call the United States the great Satan. They call Israel the little Satan. I don't doubt for a minute that if they ever got a nuclear weapon, they would use that weapon to, as I've stated once before, in the Shiite part of Islam, they believe that we have to basically have Armageddon in order to bring on the Mahdi, which is their Jesus Christ figure, and they're all about that. And that's why, we've got 2 hours until the president's deadline, and that's why these folks are not giving in. I mean, they believe that if they die, they're going to receive 72 virgins, and then if their civilian population gets killed, those people are martyrs for the cause. So that's an entrenched ideology. That is what many have called a death cult, and that's exactly what it is. It is a death cult.
I mean, all you got to do is do some basic research on this. And again, I am not saying that all Muslims believe this. I am saying that at its root cause, those who are the most ardent followers of Islam, they themselves do not believe it is a religion of peace. Chris, it is a religion that pursues the jihad, right? I mean, that's what Islamists are known for. They're not known for their peaceful excursions around the globe. In its most orthodox form. I mean, look at the other religions in their most orthodox forms, right? I don't know a lot of Jews, Orthodox Jews, who are trying to exterminate other populations, or Orthodox Christians. Now, we can go back thousands of years to the Holy Crusades, where all the religions were fighting violently against each other. But Judaism, Christianity, it has evolved. It has evolved since the time of Christ, right? At least for Christianity. Christ preached love, not hate. He preached peace, not war. But Islam doesn't seem to have ever had that conversion. And at its core, it believes that women are second-class citizens, and that people of different sexual orientations beyond heterosexual are to be put to the sword. I mean, these are factual things. I'm looking at an article right now from the Christian Research Institute talking about how it is basic tenets. It is a religion of terrorism and violence. It is a religion of the jihad, and this is what they're doing across the globe.
4:57. We are less than 2 hours from the president's deadline for Iran. We will wonder, is that deadline going to be fulfilled? We will find out later tonight. But Speaker Stump speech coming up.
We're going to talk about the title is From Illegal Immigrants to Insane Iranians.
And then we'll speak with Representative Darren Chappell. He is representative for the 137th District on eliminating the state income tax. You're listening to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show on 101.9 94.1 News Talk STL.
This hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stifel. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com.
This is Larry Connors, and my favorite sandwich at Capriati's is a Philly cheesesteak with peppers. Sweet peppers, but sometimes hot peppers. I love Capriati's, and so will you.
Open 9 to 9 daily on Manchester at McKnight in Rock Hill.
Game day comfort steps up to the plate Saturday, April 11th, when the Cardinals face the Boston Red Sox downtown. That night, fans can score a Cardinals dugout hoodie presented by Mercy, built for cool nights, late innings, and early season baseball. It's a classic, easy-to-wear layer you'll reach for all year long. Available in medium or extra large while supplies last. Don't miss this spring matchup. Get tickets and details at cardinals.com/promotions.
Every Sunday home game is a kids' Sunday at Busch Stadium. From Team Fred Birding games to a kid-friendly DJ, ice cream, and family-favorite activities. Sundays are built for young fans. Plus, select Sundays feature kids run the bases after the game. It's a day made for smiles, memories, and Cardinals baseball together. Make Sundays your family tradition at Busch Stadium. Tickets and details at cardinals.com/kidssunday.
Looking for insurance you can truly trust? Since 1986, Bauer Insurance Agency has been protecting families and businesses across Missouri and Illinois. Owner Cindy Blanton doesn't just offer one quote. She shops all the top carriers like Progressive, Travelers, Safeco, and more to find you the best rates. Whether it's your home, auto, toys, or business, we've got you covered. Visit us at Mid-Rivers Mall in St. Peters or call 636-812-2001. Bauer Insurance Agency, the company that protects, the name you can trust.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Belfast, KNBS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, and always streaming at newstalkstl.com.
News this hour from Town Hall. I'm Keith Peters in Washington. White House correspondent Greg Clugston reports on reaction to President Trump's threat to destroy Iranian civilization if it doesn't meet his demand to open the Strait of Hormuz by 8 p.m. Eastern Time tonight.
From Capitol Hill to the Vatican, concern and outrage is being expressed after Donald Trump vowed to utterly destroy Iran unless it opened the Strait of Hormuz. House Democratic leaders issued a joint statement calling the president completely unhinged and asked the House to be brought back immediately into legislative session and vote to, quote, end this reckless war of choice. Meanwhile, Pope Leo XIV said the president's threat against all the people of Iran is truly unacceptable. Greg Clugston, Washington.
Vice President J.D. Vance is in Hungary to boost Viktor Orban's re-election bid.
Vice President J.D. Vance is visiting Hungary's capital to support Prime Minister Viktor Orban's campaign only days before a pivotal election. Vance will meet Orban and appear at a campaign rally, signalling strong backing from the Trump administration. Orban, in power since 2010, faces a tough race against a centre-right party. Critics accuse Orban of undermining Hungary's institutions and media, which he denies. Most polls show Orban trailing ahead of the April 12 vote, prompting him to boost his profile by appearing with international backers. I'm Charles Tiledesma.
Turkish officials say that gunmen attacked police outside a building housing the Israeli consulate in Istanbul. The gun battle left one assailant dead and 2 police officers wounded. 2 other assailants were captured on Tuesday. The attackers carried long-barreled weapons. On Wall Street, the Dow down by 85 points, the Nasdaq rose 21, the S&P advanced 5. More at townhall.com.
Sight and Sound Films presents
Benjamin Franklin.
Reverend Whitfield, A Match Made in Heaven.
Or just a deal made in a print shop.
2 voices.
My friends, do you want to be free?
1 idea.
The Constitution needs to speak to the heart of these people.
A new nation.
You are the lightning bolt, George. I am just the lightning rod. And who is the source, Ben?
A Great Awakening. Now playing in theaters. agreatawakening.com for details. Rated PG-13.
Veterans and active duty service members, when your call to service ends, your mission doesn't have to. Go from GI to IT in just a few months at My Computer Career. Prepare for a high-demand career in cybersecurity, protecting people, systems, and institutions from real cyber threats. Cyber warriors are needed now. Will you answer the call? Go to mycomputercareer.edu/CWP to learn more. That's mycomputercareer.edu/CWP, an elite CompTIA certification partner. VA education benefits.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm First Alert 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. A big warm-up is on the way. Now, we're near normal cool in the morning, a low of 43 degrees with some mostly cloudy skies. but turning partly sunny, a little breezy, and a high of 75. What a nice Wednesday. But it is warmer for Thursday, a low of 56 in the morning, and then a high near 80, around 79 with partly cloudy skies Thursday. That's the latest from the First Alert 4 Weather Center. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
This hour of News Talk STL is brought to you by Stifel, serving investors for over 130 years. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com.
Is your portfolio prepared for the biggest risks facing investors today? Hi, it's Tim Jones. High inflation and a rapidly changing economy may impact your investments. If you haven't made appropriate changes, your portfolio may not be positioned to address some of the biggest risks in today's economy. That means it's time to request your free portfolio review from the ClearPath Wealth Management Group at Stifel. You can hear their latest views on the markets and investing during On the Money, hosted by Stifel financial advisors Bob Stockdale and Eric Robert, every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. on News Talk STL 101.9. They can help you get organized, guide you through critical retirement decisions, and create a portfolio designed around your needs. To schedule your free portfolio review, go to clearpathinvesting.com. That's clearpathinvesting.com, or call 636-695-2650. That's clearpathinvesting.com, 636-695-2650. Stifel Nicholas & Company, Incorporated, member SIPC and NYSE.
Number one for live and local conservative talk.
I just would like to get your comments on that. I'm so glad that you're on the radio, and I want to thank you for that.
I'll tell you why.
1019 and 94.1.
I love these people.
St. Louis is number one for conservative talk.
News Talk STL. Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
The more you remove voting from Election Day, the more opportunity you're offering for people to commit fraud.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
I think the Democrats are so short-sighted in this tactic they have now to just cheat at any cost to win elections.
Lying dog-faced pony soldier. You said you were, but now you got to be honest. I'm going to be honest with you.
What are we doing wrong here?
As a former leader in the House, I think you can put your finger on it. It's called leadership. We don't have it.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
There are nearly 24 areas just in the county voting on tax measures for
A U.S. official confirms to me that the U.S. military carried out strikes overnight on Iran's Karg Island. This is where Iran exports some 90% of its oil, but this official specifies those strikes focused only on military targets there. This is not the first time the U.S. military has struck Karg Island. They did the same in the middle of March, again, focusing on military targets. We should note, however, that President Trump has at times threatened to strike Iran's oil infrastructure, and he has now set a deadline to strike a whole host of Iranian infrastructure, including power plants and bridges.
5:06 on the Tim Jones and Chris Arp show. And Tim, we are less than 2 hours from D-Day. Will he or will he not do what he said he was going to do on Easter, bomb them back into the Stone Age and end their civilization, which I don't think the president meant in their civilization. I think he meant the regime. That's what he meant. But, of course, the left is taking it all out of context and are saying that he wants to commit genocide, which I don't think that was his frame of reference when he said that. But, to go back to what I was saying earlier about how the Iranians, the jihadis there, they don't care about themselves. They don't care about their own people. And to prove that, they have asked their population, particularly young people, to form human chains around some of their energy infrastructure. And it just shows you just how evil these people are. I mean, your young people are your future, and you're asking them to basically sacrifice their lives for this evil regime.
Yeah, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit in the stump speech today. But yeah, Chris, and the media, I'm going to talk about the fact the media is ignoring all this, right? As you just pointed out, the Iranian regime, again, you have to, I'm sorry, if you're going to keep up with us here on the Tim Jones and Chris Arp show, you have to understand the differences that we make between things. There's a huge, it's not a nuanced difference. there's a huge difference between when you and I are referring to the Iranian regime, the mullahs, the ayatollahs, the theocratic totalitarian dictators, and the Iranian people, right? The Iranian people, if they had the ability to do so, look, they're completely unarmed. There's no Second Amendment in Iran. There's no weapons in Iran for the people. They are completely, they're an enslaved people, right? They are to do as they are told. But if they had their druthers, they would love to return to the pre-revolutionary Iran back in the you look at the history of Iran, the proud Persian people from which they descend. They were an incredibly advanced society up through the 50s, the 1960s, the 1970s, until the Ayatollahs came in and basically took those proud people literally back to the Stone Ages. You know, Donald Trump doesn't have to bomb them back too far because that's basically what they're required to live in. Iran could be the shining jewel of the Middle East, but it's because of their leadership that they're not allowed to be so. And yet the media, the Western media and the US media leads the charge on this horrible reporting, completely ignores the fact that the Iranian regime, the ruling regime, does not give a lick for its people, and that is proven by the absolute slaughter that they committed of tens of thousands of Iranians just a few months ago.
And there are starting to be a couple of cracks on the Senate side for Republicans for the president's actions in Iran. Freshman Senator John Curtis from Utah said he won't support new funding without a formal declaration of war. And Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin, who is a stalwart supporter of the president, could not back his words that he used on Easter, talking about hitting some of Iran's infrastructure, the oil, the salinization plants, maybe. He was basically saying that's a bridge too far for him, and he does not support that. One of the main media narratives that we're hearing, Tim, of course, from the left is that these actions that the president is threatening amount to war crimes, even though bridges and some of these other installations that he's talking about using are dual use. They're civilian use and military use. And so I think that would get around this whole war crimes narrative.
Yeah, war is hell, and no one should think of it in as any other way. But nothing Donald Trump has done is any different than any wars that have been fought previously. The Iranian regime, very similar to like what the Taliban and Al Qaeda would do. You know, they're using civilians to cloak and to cover military targets. You see the Russians do this all the time as well. The one thing we should not do is engage in any kind of nation building or effort that lasts beyond its pale. What we need to do is make sure that Iran no longer has the ability to enrich uranium, to weaponize missiles and put nuclear warheads on them. And once we achieve that goal, the best we can, like we will never know for sure because there's only so much you can find out. But once we're satisfied with that, I think Donald Trump needs to look for an exit ramp here. I think he's looking for that exit ramp, but he wants to make sure that the oil is flowing again through the Strait of Hormuz and that the Iranians can no longer accurately or actually threaten their neighbors.
You know, the same narrative that I kept hearing over and over and over on all the Sunday shows, too, as they kept asking the politicians, the military leaders, are we going to put boots on the ground in Iran? That's their main question that they're asking. You know, they're trying to put these folks on the spot so they're on record that if the president does that and it goes bad, they're on record for supporting it. But, you know, the president has said many times, and military analysts have said many times, the president needs to have all options on the table. That doesn't necessarily mean he's going to do that, but you don't signal to the Iranians that, no, we're never going to put boots on the ground. And you would think that these people would realize that, but they have a narrative they want to get across, and they don't seem to use common sense sometimes.
No, that's for sure. I mean, presidential administrations going back decades, Republicans and Democrats, have said the same exact things that Donald Trump has said. All of these administrations, Republican and Democrat, have said that Iran is a threat to global world order, that Iran should never have a nuclear weapon. This, that, and the other thing. So everyone has talked tough, but it's as if they're mad that Donald Trump finally took action. It's like, are we just supposed to talk about how bad Iran is until they actually launch a nuclear weapon, or are we supposed to take action to prevent them from doing that? The media is so two-faced. And, I don't think it matters that it's Donald Trump. If it was any Republican president, they'd be doing the same thing. It's just Donald Trump just especially gets their goat.
And I'll tell you something else that's been completely nauseating to me watching the Sunday shows over the weekend was watching the media gloat over the fact that two of our airmen were shot down after the president said that we had air supremacy, and basically saying the president lied when he said that that's the narrative. But, we had Jim Talon on yesterday, and he kind of clarified that. He says we have air superiority, where we pretty much rule the skies over Iran, but we don't have air supremacy. And there's a big difference between air superiority and air supremacy. What happened to those airmen, that was a lucky strike. A broken clock is right twice a day. They used a shoulder-fire missile that probably had been hidden away somewhere, and were able to shoot down that plane. That does not mean that we still don't control the skies. We do. We have air superiority, not supremacy.
Conflict's been going on for about 5 weeks now. We have lost 13 servicemen and women. That's 13 too many. But considering that the scope and the scale of the conflict, it's remarkable that there hasn't been more. The one aircraft that was shot down that was manned, we've recovered those pilots. So this has been a remarkable operation. And again, I would love for the media, they never will answer questions, but I'd love for them, what were we supposed to do long term with Iran? Were we literally supposed to wait for them to prove to us that they were enriching uranium, that they were trying to weaponize an intercontinental ballistic missile, that they did intend to utilize it? They showed recently, a couple weeks ago, that they definitely were developing the missile technology, where they launched a missile that went many thousand miles further than it was supposed to. And so I don't think that anyone should have any druthers to. So what were we supposed to do? Were we supposed to wait for the premonitions of a nuclear holocaust before taking such action? They're constantly rooting. I don't want the media to root for or against anyone. I just want them to be objective. But they seem to absolutely be cheerleading for a regime that doesn't believe in the rights of journalists. It's just really remarkable.
And the other media narrative that I'm so sick of, and the Democratic leadership parrots it as well, is that the president doesn't have a game plan in this war. We don't know how it's going to end. Well, I think the president does have a game plan. He said, one, that Iran, there was no way that they were going to have a nuclear weapon. We took the necessary measures to destroy that capability. We took the measures to destroy their ballistic missiles. Their nuclear program is buried somewhere under a mountain, and we've killed and eliminated 2 or 3 levels of their leadership. And if that regime collapses, that is a cherry on top of the military action. But I think the president has a game plan. I think he is executing it flawlessly. And, as you said, there's only been a few American servicemen that have unfortunately lost their lives. We've lost a handful of plans. But I think if you look at what the president's objective was, and he stated that, I think he does have a game plan, and he's doing it.
I think he does indeed. And he will decide when the conflict's over, and hopefully that will be a hobbled Iran, if not a completely broken one, and they will no longer be a threat to the Middle East or to any of our American interests in and around that region.
You want to give your thoughts?
I am ready to roll with a little capstone on this conversation in today's Speaker Stump Speech.
Listen to me, listen to me.
I'm very consistent. I'm a very stable genius.
It's time for the Speaker Stump Speech, sponsored by Hanson's Tree Service at hansonstree.com.
Title of today's Speaker Stump Speech, From Illegal Immigrants to Insane Iranians. Yeah, the media likes to support both of them, don't they? Again, I don't want a media that is a lapdog for one side or another. Even though I consider myself a hardcore movement conservative, I am and continue to remain a fan of President Donald J. Trump and of most things Republican, although I think we have shown that we definitely criticize Republicans when when they definitely deserve it. I don't want my media to be a cheerleader, my U.S. media to be a cheerleader one way or the other. Yes, I will tell you that most of the time I choose to review center-right sources, watch things like Newsmax and Fox News, read things like the Federalist, National Review. However, I also watch and listen and read the other side because I want to know what their arguments are. I believe that iron sharpens iron. I want to know exactly what their criticisms are. And so I want that worldview. Does anyone in the media think that way? I'm talking about the national corrupt corporate media. The idiot boxes and the talking heads at CNN and MS Now, or whatever it is they're calling themselves these days, the broadcast dinosaur legacy media of ABC, CBS, and NBC, so on and so forth. And it's never been more evident in what they do as regards illegal aliens and what they're doing now as regards insane Iranians. Not the Iranian people, again. Big difference and a distinction there, but the Iranian leadership. It seems that every time we have a story involving illegal aliens, the media either ignores it or tries to whitewash it or cover it up in some way or another. They never seem to worry about the American victim, who is usually at the heart of those stories. Didn't they tell us during COVID that every single life matters? Well, look, it does. I'm not going to argue with that. But during COVID, we basically destroyed and dismantled our entire economy and crippled our entire nation because of a really, really serious flu. I'm not telling you COVID didn't exist. There was definitely a virus, and it definitely killed many, and it harmed others. But our reaction to it, driven by the media, I would argue was even worse. Able-bodied, healthy Americans should never have been locked up at home. Look at what that caused regarding the Summer of Love. Look at what that did to our kids and their test scores in a public education system that's already strained and already failing. Look at what that did to the mental health of so many Americans. Yeah, haven't you heard the old saying that the cure was worse than the curse? And in this case, it seemed like it was. The proposed cure almost dismantled society. Well, you know, they said every life mattered during COVID, but apparently every life doesn't matter when it comes to Americans who are being assaulted, raped, attacked, murdered, and killed by illegal aliens. They seem to they seem to whitewash every single one of those stories, just kind of floating past the graveyard. And it's never been more evident in what they're doing now with seemingly rooting against the United States of America just to spite Trump. And again, I don't think it matters that it's Donald Trump. Yes, Donald Trump seems to bring out the absolute worst in them, but I still think they'd be pretty bad if it was any Republican president. If this was Reagan right now, I think they'd be doing the same things. If this was H.W. or W. Bush, I think they'd be acting the same way. It just seems that in the instances of Trump, they're absolutely even more unhinged, if that is possible. A telling example, I got this from an article written by Daniel Samet of American Enterprise Institute, AEI. And Daniel writes that a telling example of all this recently came from Margaret Brennan, one of Chris's and I's favorites, who hosts the CBS News Face the Nation on Sundays, something that we subject ourselves all the time so you don't have to. She recently had probing questions for Energy Secretary Chris Wright and Israeli Ambassador Yechiel Leiter on her show on March 8th. But 1 week later, Brennan evinced less skepticism in her interview with Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, whom she didn't even challenge on the tens of thousands of protesters that the regime slaughtered earlier this year, something I mentioned earlier in the show. She was tougher on officials from democracies than the chief diplomat of perhaps the world's vilest regime. Doesn't that say it all? Margaret Brennan should have been, if she number one, she should have been equally tough on all of them. But if she's gonna show a bias, wouldn't you think she'd be maybe a little tougher on the world's #1 state sponsor of terror and all of their absolute liars that they produce to American journalists? Daniel says it's one thing for journalists to observe the war's risks and costs. It's another thing for them to frame it as an absolute failure, absent evidence, which they did basically on day one. They basically said the war was a failure the moment that Donald Trump announced it. What about the fact that the United States and Israel have eliminated Iran's political leadership, sunk its entire navy, degraded its nuclear, ballistic missile, and drone capabilities, and more? One can't escape the hard conclusion that the legacy media wants America to fail and wants America to lose this war. We no longer have an unbiased media. We have a media in this country on the national corporate level that seems to be rooting against the United States of America at every single turn. And that's the Speaker stump speech for today.
You know, and I got to disagree with you slightly. Tim, I do want the media rooting for America. You look back at World War II, you didn't see this trying to be unbiased or rooting for the other side. They were American, and they were proud of it. And I'd like to see the American media, for once, be like they used to be during World War II.
Yeah, I guess I'm just hoping for a baby step, right, Chris?
I agree.
So I would love them to get to your position. I just don't want them to be rooting against us, and I think we definitely agree there. It's really unbelievable, isn't it, that these people, Chris, these people would not, I'm talking about the media now, the national corporate media, Chris, they would not be even allowed to even think about doing what they get to do in this country in any of these countries that we're fighting right now.
And I tell you one thing, too, that's really getting on my nerves is how they're criticizing Secretary of War Pete Hegseth because he's been using biblical passages to talk about our troops and about this war.
Yeah.
And it's like, do you remember World War II when Franklin Delano Roosevelt when General Eisenhower was talking about D-Day and the prayer that he gave to the troops saying that God be with you and some of your souls may not make it. I mean, did they forget? I know that was 80 years ago. This is nothing new having the Secretary of War or Secretary of Defense or Army generals invoking God's name. There's nothing new in that.
Amen. Amen. It's because, Chris, and I do not say this lightly, they largely are godless atheists that think they are the higher power.
That is correct. All right, when we come back, we're going to speak with Darren Chappell, representative for District 37. We're going to talk about the House cutting the state budget and his thoughts on income tax cut elimination. You're listening to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show on 101.9 94.1 News Talk STL.
This land is your land. This land is my land.
Dropping truth bombs and making you think. It's the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show.
Well, to the New York Island.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm First Alert 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. A big warm-up is on the way. Now, we're near normal cool in the morning, a low of 43 degrees with some mostly cloudy skies, but turning partly sunny, a little breezy, and a high of 75. What a nice Wednesday, but it is warmer for Thursday, a low of 56 in the morning, and then a high near 80, around 79 with partly cloudy skies Thursday. That's the latest from the First Alert 4 Weather Center. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
So many ways to listen to News Talk STL.
Don't join the conversation. All you have to do is say,
Hey Alexa, play News Talk STL.
Welcome to News Talk STL, conservative talk radio for St. Louis.
You know, even the best windows can lose their shine without the right care. And if your windows, doors, or storefront glass are looking dull or streaked, I've got a great local recommendation for you. STL Windows and Doors now offers professional window cleaning through their sister company, STL Window Cleaners, serving homes and businesses all across greater St. Louis. My wife and I had our windows cleaned last summer and a few weeks ago, and I tell you, the difference was incredible. This isn't some quick and spray wipe job. They use triple filtered, ultra pure water that removes the minerals that cause streaks and spots, leaving your windows crystal clear. STL Window Cleaners handles everything interior and exterior glass, frames, sills, track screens, and if you've got worn or damaged screens, they'll replace those too. They do it carefully, thoroughly, and professionally. Whether you're getting your home ready to sell, you're hosting an event, or just want more natural light now that spring and summer are coming, they'll make it easy with flexible scheduling and eco-friendly solutions. They also offer commercial window cleaning for offices and office storefronts, working around your schedule to keep your business looking sharp. And remember, they're still the same trusted family-owned team St. Louis relies on for windows and door installations. Give them a call today to set up your free estimate at 314-277-5952 or visit stlwindowsanddoors.com, stlwindowsanddoors.com. STL Windows and Doors, making St. Louis homes sparkle all year long.
Hey, Mike Ferguson here, and for nearly 40 years, Nutrition Stop has been St. Peter's trusted source for natural living. They've got a great, knowledgeable staff offering more than just products. They provide guidance on your wellness journey with exceptional service. From 100% grass-fed meats like elk and bison and local produce to quality supplements and clean household products, 4101 Mexico Road in St. Peter's, just off the interstate at Cave Springs and Highway 70.
Steph's Pizza. You know the name. They're famous for their St. Louis-style pizza. But don't forget their party platters for the holidays. Steph's sandwiches, pasta, and pizza are always big hits at any get-together. And the party platters make it easy. 3 great locations, St. Peter's on Juggerman, in St. Charles on Zumbill, and their newest location in Lake St. Louis at 111 Pondfort Trail. Check them out at stefspizza.com, stefspizza.com. And remember, tonight's a good night for Steph's Pizza.
Jamie Allman here, tossing and turning over retirement worries. You're not alone. 3 out of 4 Americans share your concern about having enough saved. But here's the thing. A comfortable retirement isn't out of reach, even if you're planning for 30 or 40 years ahead. Every day, Jeff Portman from the Gemini Wealth Group helps people avoid the critical mistakes that can derail their retirement. Build your path to financial confidence. Visit GeminiWealthGroup.com or call Jeff directly at 314-888-0123.
Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor. Member FINRA, SIPC.
This hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stifel. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com. You're listening to Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
This day has been a long day coming. Everyone pretty much knows how much this bill means to me. Being able to remove the barrier that allows pregnant women to get divorced in the state of Missouri is something that I have had experience with for 20 years, almost 20 years now. And I always stated that the day that this law goes into effect or we have made a change would be my personal Independence Day.
5:30 on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show, and that is Jefferson County State Representative Cecily Williams telling you about her bill that the governor signed this morning, which allows pregnant women to be able to get divorced. And, you know, until this became an issue and we started hearing about it, Tim, it was kind of hard for me to believe that a Stone Age law like this was still in effect, and so many women were kept in situations where they were beaten and abused and couldn't get divorced because they were pregnant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just been a long-standing item in our law that's never been updated, into the 21st century.
All right, let's talk about news that I read today. I think it is that there is the state surplus, which has $2 billion in it, is going to be used to shore up a $50.3 billion operating budget. Tim, what does this mean overall?
Well, hoping our budget expert, Darren Chappell, can join us. The House is still in session, and he was texting me, and I think he's on his way, so we can hopefully get him on for the end of our segment here, and he can give us all the nitty-gritty. But essentially, Chris, what happened was during the Biden-Harris years, when billions and trillions of dollars were flowing everywhere, including into state coffers, state budgets ballooned, right? And they tried to take good care of that here in the state of Missouri and only use it for one-time expenditures. But, not everybody had that same position, and some of these things were used for line items that people would thought would just last forever. Now, Chris, that money's gone. And so it's like, how they talk about quantitative easing all the time at the Fed and unwinding and all those economic terms. That's basically what they're having to do here on the state level. They're having to go backwards in time by hook or by crook to a time where they just don't have that level of federal revenue inappropriately, in my mind, flowing in here. And Chris, some legislators, they're not used to that, right? I think term limits is part of that. And, some people have never been here during tough budgetary times. I got to see both ends of the spectrum during my time here. And Representative Chappell just walked in the room, so we'll
Good.
bring him into the
All right.
conversation in just a second. There's your headphones right there. I was here during some of the big heydays, and then I was here during the time of the 2008-2009 recession when we had to cut the budget. And you would have thought, the sky was falling. And so we're at that situation once again. Darren, can we hear you there?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, there he is.
Hey,
Fresh from the House floor. He just got done voting on, I'm sure, something vitally important for the people of the state of Missouri.
It was a PQ on a bill that would make suppressors more accessible for firearms.
Second Amendment rights.
You betcha.
There we go. Representative Darren Chappell, Chris, joining us once again here on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show, and he is on the Budget Committee. And Chris, he just helped pass the budget, and they provided a smaller budget than last year, doing the correct fiscal thing. So, Darren, tell us in general why it was important to cut the budget this year, and were any vital services in your mind affected with the cuts that you and others led in the House side?
No, there. I mean, all summer long, I was on the Special Committee on Property Tax Reform, and I asked the same question everywhere we went: how much is enough? Never once got an answer. It's amazing, and that's because the answer is it's never enough. But I'm sure there are individuals that wanted more, and I have no doubt of that. But when you are in a budgetary situation in which we currently find ourselves, it's impossible to make everyone happy and still remain solvent. And, we have a duty to the citizens of this state to make sure that our budget does not take everything out. And so it makes difficult decisions necessary. And, we've had a reduced budget come out of the House every year for the last 4 years. Goes to the Senate, and stuff happens. But from the House side, we've had a reduced budget every year, and this year is no exception.
Representative, tell us about the $2 billion from the state surplus that's been used to bridge the gap there in this year's budget. And this $2 billion, was that the top limit of the budget surplus, or has it been higher in previous years and has dwindled down to that?
Yeah, the latter. It has dwindled down. We've just simply been spending more money than we have brought in. And, I fought against that every year. I still fight against it. And I know that other legislators, Tim being a former Speaker of the House, he can attest to this. There have been lean years in the past. And I know that other state reps and state senators have had to deal with those lean years and the difficulties that they bring. But let me tell you what's happening now that has never happened in the history of the state before. That budget is over appropriated by 20%. And so in order for us to get where we need to be, from what, the original governor's recommendation was $54.7 billion, and that budget really needs to be around $44 billion. Well, nobody's ever cut the budget by 20% before, but as we continue to run out of that surplus, eventually this gravy train is going to come to a screeching stop. Now, I've tried over the last 4 years to find a soft landing. I grew up on a horse ranch, and one thing I know about riding horses is when you're going to fall off, the first thing you got to do is find you a soft spot to land. Now, I've been looking for a soft spot for 4 years, but unfortunately, I've been a voice crying in the wilderness, it seems. Well, that day's coming, and when it does, there'll be no more funding, and the decisions will be thrust upon us rather than trying to come in for a soft landing. So I'm afraid that's what we're going to look like, if not next year, certainly the year after.
Darren, to put things in perspective, folks probably need to be aware of some 35,000 foot statistics. I believe the fiscal year 2014, 2015, about 10 years ago or so, the all-in state budget, federal and state dollars, was around $26 billion. You just mentioned that the governor proposed that the next fiscal year be around $54 billion. That's more than doubled. Well, Darren, the population of the state hasn't more than doubled in the last 10 years. I would argue that the needs haven't doubled. I know the private sector GDP numbers haven't doubled, but Darren, government has doubled. That's the real problem, isn't it?
Well, yeah. So we don't even have to go back 10 years. In the last 7 years, the revenue of the state of Missouri, and I'm not talking about the national government money, which is ridiculous, but the revenue from Missouri to Missouri has increased over the last 7 years roughly 39%. The difficulty is spending over that same period has increased by 86%. And nobody believes we're getting 86% better governance. So that's the result of the Washington, D.C. money that got stuck in there. The difficulty is the departments have grown accustomed to being funded at that level. This is like having your adult kids living at home and they don't want to leave because they don't want to have to sit on milk crates in a single bedroom apartment with low level electric bulbs and the bare bulbs in the living room because they're used to the way mom and dad lived, and that's where our departments are right now. They're used to this level of funding. We cannot sustain that level of funding, and so we've had to make some very, very serious decisions, and I've been a part of that for the last 3.5 years. So
Representative, tell us how this budget surplus mechanism works. Is a certain amount of money taken out of the general revenue fund every year and put it in that surplus, or how does that surplus happen?
Well, we do have a fund that is dedicated to 7% is set aside for essentially a rainy day, and that's a mechanism of the budget process itself. But the budget surpluses that we've seen in recent years is simply money that's come in largely, overwhelmingly from Washington, D.C., where Congress, through the ARPA, the CARES Act, all of the COVID ridiculousness, they sent all this money to the state, and so much of it has been set aside and not utilized for one-time expenditures. And frankly, we've just been living off of the largesse of that. Now, I never want to underestimate the capacity of Washington to be ridiculous. They could absolutely send more money out. But A, I would argue we should not take it. And B, even if we did, it would just kick the can down the road. The reality of it is the state of Missouri, like every governmental entity, we should operate within our means. And I believe, from my experience in government, which I have decades of at the local level and now the state level, I believe that conservative governance works every single time it's tried. The problem is not enough people have the backbone to actually put forth the effort. And in a budget year where you're having difficulties and it's an election year, there are a lot of people that are pretty squishy about actually cutting the budget when we desperately need to do so.
Speaking to Representative Darren Chappell, he's a member of the Missouri Freedom Caucus. He's also on the Budget Committee and a lot of other very important committees. Darren, on a happier note, the House had a pretty successful first half this year, passing a taxpayer Bill of Rights bill, something had been considered in over a decade, passing the REINS Act to kind of rein in the regulatory state, passing a version of a bill that you've been suggesting for years, a fair tax model, eliminating the income tax and broadening our tax base. And you got a discussion going once again on something that once again hasn't been heard from in over a decade, reforming our Missouri, quote, nonpartisan court plan system.
Is there anything named more dishonestly than that? We are dealing with that now. I want to throw this out there too. I also got through the House.
Oh yeah, the Medicaid reform,
Medicaid work requirement.
Yes,
that's being heard in committee tomorrow morning in the Senate. By
excellent.
The way. So, but yeah, the Missouri court plan. So what this HJR, it'll require a vote of the people. But what it will do is it will have our judges at the appellate and the Supreme Court level be nominated by the governor and then approved by a joint committee made up of members of the House and the Senate. That way there's no filibuster. No party can try to filibuster the other party's nominees. and we would remove ourselves from the undue influence that the Missouri bar currently has on the judges. I mean, right now it is entirely the fox's garden, the hen house. You've got attorneys helping to select which judges and justices there are that they would like to present before, and I think that's a bad idea. Included in this is also my bill that would require that judges above the at the appellate and above the associate judge level, that it would require that judges not receive gifts from attorneys and from people that are presenting before them. And I tell you what, just cracks me up. I've been told by attorneys and judges and prosecutors, defense attorneys, they're all opposed to this, which that's probably a good bill. When you get all of them on the same side, you got to wonder why. But I've been told both that it won't do anything because the Supreme Court already has these rules. And I've also been told that it will end the judicial system as we know it. And in a rational universe, I don't know how both of those are true.
Doesn't seem to make sense.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens with that. That'll be brought out of committee this week, and then we'll get it over to the Senate, get it past the House, and get it over to the Senate. This is going to be a multi-year deal. It's not going to happen this year, but I know it won't ever happen unless we actually have the discussion and push for it.
You got the ball rolling.
So that's what we're doing, and this is all Freedom Caucus, conservatives working together, trying to get stuff done for the betterment of the state. And that's what it's all about.
And that is Darren Chappell, representative for District 137, Chappell for Missouri.com. Representative, thank you so much for your time and all the hard work you're doing for the great citizens of Missouri.
It is entirely my privilege. Thank you for having me on, fellas.
Thank you, Darren.
Tim, we've got breaking news on the Iran war. I'll tell you what that is when we come back on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show on 1019 94.1 News Talk STL.
Follow us on Rumble at News Talk STL. From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm First Alert 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. A big warm-up is on the way. Now, we're near normal cool in the morning, a low of 43 degrees with some mostly cloudy skies, but turning partly sunny, a little breezy, and a high of 75. What a nice Wednesday, but it is warmer for Thursday, a low of 56 in the morning, and then a high near 80, around 79 with partly cloudy skies Thursday. That's the latest from the First Alert 4 Weather Center. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
The Vic Porcelli Show.
Ken and I, we love our veterans. That's why we honor them every Wednesday at 11:05, and we'll do another edition of Vic for Vets Wednesday at 11:05.
Weekday mornings at 9 on News Talk STL.
Home buying and selling season. Yep, it's upon us. Spring has sprung. The Wallner Home Selling Team at Berkshire Hathaway standing by to assist you for all your real estate needs. Rodney and Jen Wallner. Now also joined by our own Jamie Allman. You can reach them all at 314-810-SOLD. The Wallner team will offer you a flexible commission plan. It is not going to be something that's crammed and forced upon you. It's going to be something that is going to be tailored to your specific needs and wants. The Wallners have so many approved home buyers, they'll guarantee to obtain you an offer. They're a husband and wife team, and they got the addition of Jamie as well. He's a family man. You get a unique tri-cornered family perspective, not just that of one agent. That's priceless in and of itself. There's no obligation or any long-term commitment when you join up with the Wallners. If you're not happy or change your mind, they'll let you out of that agreement. Come back when it's good time for you. They are licensed in both Missouri and Illinois. You will receive that extraordinary level of service when you call them at 314-810-SOLD. That's 314-810-SOLD. Call the Wallner Home Selling Team today for a free listing consultation. Work with this awesome hometown, locally grown and developed, independently owned agency, the Wallner Home Selling Team. You'll get a free consultation, and you will sell your home with this top producing crew. 314-810-SOLD. That's 314-810-SOLD.
This is Tony Colombo, and my favorite Capriati sandwich is the cheesesteak made with American Wagyu beef from Snake River Farms, and you have to include a side of their amazing fries. I love Capriati's, and you will too.
Open 9 to 9 daily on Manchester at McKnight in Rock Hill.
1 in 4 women will have an abortion before the age of 45 in this country. That's the tragedy we must work to stop. Mike Ferguson from The Morning Show here, and that is why Reach Reproductive Health is here, to empower parents to save the lives of innocent children and to see these families come to Christ. And you can be a part of saving and changing lives. So pray and visit outreachforlife.org to learn more, volunteer, and donate. That's outreachforlife.org.
Colombo here for my friends at Bluff City Outdoors in Alton. The knowledgeable staff at Bluff City has served the St. Louis outdoor community for decades, and they can take care of all your bow hunting needs, all your trapping needs, all your fishing needs, and more. Plus, while you're there, you can schedule a trip with a local fishing guide and shoot in their archery range. Bluff City Outdoors is open 7 days a week, 1 mile east of Fast Eddie's at 2813 East Broadway in Alton. Follow them on Facebook and at bluffcityoutdoors.com.
It's the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show.
Yeah, the second question you asked about, is God on our side? Is God on, whose side? I think my attitude towards military conflict has always been to pray that we're on God's side. And my own view is that we're doing this for the right reasons. We're doing this because we don't want a regime that has committed acts of terrorism to have the world's most dangerous weapon, because that would mean a lot of innocent people dead. I certainly hope that God agrees with the decision that Iran shouldn't have a nuclear weapon, but I'll keep praying about it. And if he gives me a good answer, you'll be the first to know, Natalie.
5:49 on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show. And breaking news, Tim, Newsmax is reporting that the president has agreed to a 2-week ceasefire with Iran. He calls it a double-sided 2-week ceasefire. Pakistan is the one that has proposed this. This is what Pakistan's prime minister wrote. He said, quote, "To allow diplomacy to run its course, I earnestly request President Trump to extend the deadline for 2 weeks. Pakistan, in all sincerity, requests the Iranian brothers to open Strait of Hormuz for a corresponding period of 2 weeks as a goodwill gesture." The president has accepted that. So it looks like that we will not be on the brink of this war escalating further for at least another 2 weeks.
Yeah, I'm seeing the statement right now up on Truth Social. President saying we have already met and exceeded our initial military objectives. We're now working for a long-term peace with Iran and peace in the Middle East. They are exchanging a 10-point proposal back and forth as a negotiation basis, and that would include the reopening, the full and complete reopening of the Strait of Hormuz and a cessation of hostilities by all sides for at least 2 weeks. So we have a tenuous peace right now, maybe a reopening of the strait, and we'll see where we go from here.
The media, of course, will never report it this way, but I believe Iran blinked. I think they saw that the president was serious, even though he used some language that many people do not approve of. But the president, when he says something, he does it, and I think they blinked and they knew that the president meant serious business, and so they did what they had to do to try to get this ceasefire. We will have to wait. Will they open the Strait of Hormuz? They are master manipulators when it comes to negotiations to try to stretch things out. The next day or two will tell the tale if they are sincere. But I think, the president, as he's always done, he doesn't take anything off the table when it comes to ground troops there in Iran, and also completely obliterating that nation. So, in my book, the Iranians blinked. They'll say Taco Tuesday. Trump always chickens out, but I think the Iranians blinked on this one.
Yep, and time will tell, and we will likely learn what happened. But for all we know, Chris, the Iranians were looking at their radars and seeing a whole fleet of, B-2 bombers heading their way, and they may have been like, maybe we don't want to get bombed back into the Stone Age. So I'm sure the details on all this will come forth, and we'll see whether or not hostilities actually do cease. And that'll be the proof in the pudding, right? If the straits are opened, the missiles stop flying, then we'll know that the Iranians were serious. But as you said, this is definitely going to have to be a trust but verify situation.
Exactly. And as we all know, this is the 250th anniversary of the birth of the United States. There will be a lot of activities happening this summer, of course. And one thing that the president is doing to honor our 250th anniversary, and it's a first, is President Donald J. Trump's signature, Tim, will appear on future U.S. paper currency along with the State Treasury Secretary of the Treasury, marking the first time in history for a sitting president to have his name on our U.S. currency. Secretary of the Treasury Scott Bessent said under President Trump's leadership, we are on a path toward unprecedented economic growth, lasting dollar dominance, and fiscal strength at home. There is no more powerful way to recognize the bearing his name, and it is only appropriate that this historic currency be issued at the sesquicentennial. And U.S. Treasurer Brandon Beach said, quote, the president marked on history as the architect of America's golden economic age and revival is undeniable. Printing his signature on the American currency is not only appropriate, but also well-deserved. And as a person who likes to collect old newspaper articles and things of nostalgia, I'll be having one of those bills with President Trump's signature on it. That's going to be a collector's item one day.
Mm-hmm. And another way to drive the left and the media, absolutely bananas, right?
And that too.
Yeah,
Also,
they'll absolutely hate that.
And also driving them further crazy, another money story in President Trump. Members of the Commission on Fine Arts, they signed off on the look for a new commemorative gold coin honoring Trump, allowing the U.S. Mint to take the next steps, though the final decision is still up to the Treasury Department. So the president will have his name on U.S. currency, and there will be a new commemorative gold coin with his likeness on it. Boy, the liberals are going to go insane, aren't they?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they will. Donald Trump is, I think it's hilarious. He's trying to put his image and likeness and name on just about everything he can. Almost too much for the left and the media to handle. There's too many bright, shiny objects bouncing before them right now.
And the ultimate measure of a president's legacy, of course, is after he leaves office, he starts a presidential library. And as we have reported here on the show before, the president has secured prime real estate in Miami for his presidential museum. And the president has unveiled the first renderings of the presidential library he plans to build there in Miami. A nearly 2-minute video on Truth Social depicts it towering over the city's existing skyscrapers, suggesting that the museum could become the tallest building in South Florida. Tim, the mock-up shows space for an Air Force One 747 jet, a Marine One helicopter, and several other aircraft. Plans also include a large golden statue of Trump in an auditorium. And here's the kicker. And a golden escalator reminiscent of the one the president famously descended in 2015 at Trump Tower in Manhattan. If this doesn't say Trump Museum, Presidential Museum, I don't know what is.
I can't wait to visit.
I can hear you.
It's going to have a huge gift shop, too, I bet.
Oh, you know it will. I've been to 9 of these presidential museums, and I can tell you, Tim, none of them are skyscrapers.
None of them ever will be, but his will be. And there'll probably be a golf course like wrapping around.
Yeah,
it
that's
too,
what I
would
heard.
imagine, maybe a hotel.
That's what I heard. Also, in commemoration of America's 250th anniversary, crews are going to erect a 6-foot wire mesh fence shaped into an octagon on the White House lawn, where UFC fighters will use a combination of kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, and other martial arts on a June 14th mixed martial arts show. That's time for the president's 80th birthday as part of the nation's 250th anniversary. So we've got all Trump news for you at the end of the show.
Fantastic way to wrap it up, and maybe some hopes for peace, Chris, as we all head home this evening.
We hope so, and I still want it on the record the Iranians blinked, but we'll soon find out if this deal holds up. All right, it's been a great show. Thank you for joining us, of course, and Larry Connors USA is up next. Larry's story behind the story. Convicted murderer Pauline Sims. Remember that case? She murdered her 2 daughters because they were girls. Larry will have that story behind the story You've been listening to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show on 1019 94.1 News Talk STL. Drive safe and have a great evening.
Do you have 3 ex-wives and your current trophy wife wants a life insurance policy 3 times the size of the policies you had to purchase for your previous mistakes? If so, you need to call Big Lou at Term Provider, 800-345-2789. Big Lou is intimately familiar with your problems, and if you're 50 or 60 years old and in reasonably good health, a $1 million policy should only cost about $100 to $200 per month. Big Lou may have a solution for your previous policies as well. You may even save enough money to lighten the load on your new $1 million policy. Remember, call Big Lou. He's like you, except he's only on number 2. Call Term Provider at 800-345-2789. That's 800-345-2789 for $1 million in term life insurance that you can live with. Call Big Lou at 800-345-2789.